Welcome back. We were discussing condensers. So, we have started from the basic and we are slowly developing the concepts. Condensation on a single tube we have seen. Now, we will see on a tube bank how condensation takes place, and then ultimately we will move to the design analysis of a surface condenser. That is a very big condenser, which is almost which is similar to a cell and tube heat exchanger, but there are very large number of tubes on which condensation takes place. Typical condenser which are used in power plant. So, the topic with which I start today is design of surface condensers. So, we will slowly go to surface condenser. If you recall, we have done one problem where we have taken a single tube and over the tube there is condensation of refrigerant vapor. So, here we are taking up another problem from the book of heat exchangers, selection, rating and thermal design by Sadiq Kakak and co-authors. Suppose that refrigerant R134A is condensing under quiescent condition, that is almost stationary vapor, on the cell side of a bundle of 41 tubes. The bundle can be configured in a square inline arrangement, which is shown in the left, and or in a triangular staggered arrangement, which is shown to the right as shown in the figure. Find the average cell side coefficient for each of the configuration. So, here all the tubes will take part in condensation, but the condensate from the tube above will fall on the tube below, and that will that will thicken the condensate film of the tube below, and which will diminish the rate of heat transfer. And this diminishing of this effect of diminishing the rate of heat transfer is a progressive one, because as we go to the tube below and below, there will be more detrimental effect of film storage. So, this we have to take into consideration, and average heat transfer coefficient is then has to be estimated taking care of all the heat transfer coefficient on the different tubes. So, let us proceed. So, initially we have determined the heat transfer coefficient of a single tube, and let us say we have got the tube heat transfer coefficient, which is this one. This we have already calculated. Now, this is the suppose there is a row of there is a column of tubes. So, this is the first tube, this is the second tube, this is the third tube, fourth tube, and so on. So, on the first tube it is not affected by the condensate from the top. So, we will have heat transfer coefficient H1, which we have calculated earlier. So, this will give the heat transfer coefficient H1, which we have calculated already, we have calculated in the previous problem. Now, later on we will have lesser amount of heat transfer coefficient. Let us see what we have written. In the inline arrangement, in the inline, the arrangement would be approximately equivalent to 7 columns of 6 tube each. This is approximate, because you see the cell is of circular cross section. So, on all the column the same number of tubes will not be there. So, we make an approximate, and this approximation For this small problem, it looks that it is little bit unjustified, but when we consider a very large condenser, so then this approximation of considering average number of tubes on in a particular column is not unjustified. So, this kind of surface condensers are used in power plant, and already I have shown some diagram where very large number of tubes are there in a column. And then we are using three relationships. These relationships have been described earlier. So, from Kern relationship we get what is the average heat transfer coefficient, whereas the heat transfer coefficient of the first tube is 1620 and average heat transfer coefficient is 1202. Then we use Nusselt relationship. Nusselt relationships gives around 1000, and then there is some sort of a correlation predicted from experiment. So, that also we use and we get something around 1407. So, what we can see, the Kern's correlation or Kern's relationship is in between the other two. So, it is always, I mean, it is many a times it is recommended that we should use Kern correlation, and we will use in the later problem also the Kern correlation or Kern relationship. And Kern relationship, what we can see that the average heat transfer coefficient is given by the heat transfer coefficient of the topmost tube. Then the number of tubes comes in two places. The 6 is the number of tube in a particular column. So, with this we get the average heat transfer coefficient. So, this is for inline arrangement. Let us go to the staggered arrangement. Assuming the condensate falls straight down and not sidewise, because you see the staggered arrangement is something like this. Staggered arrangement we can get. So, this is the staggered arrangement. So, what we assume that, let us say this is the staggered arrangement. So, condensate from the top tube falls on the tube below. So, it does not fall from here to here. So, this is not, I mean this does not fall from the tube on the side. So, rather it falls directly from the top tube to the bottom tube. So, this is the way it falls. So, if we assume that, then there are 7 columns of 3 tubes, 4 columns of 4 tubes and 2 columns of 2 tubes. So, this would be equivalent to approximately 13 columns of 3 tubes each with n is equal to 3. So, here we have made an assumption that some sort of approximation we could have calculated separately also. The changes will not be much, but in design calculation there are many assumptions, and this kind of assumption we have made that there are 7 columns and approximately there are 13 columns and approximately 3 tubes in each column. So, so let me go back to the previous figure. Then again let me go back to the previous figure, it will be. So, here I would like you to do this calculation of your own. So, we can see this is the staggered this is the staggered arrangement. So, just see what we have told, that there are 13 columns and approximately these many tubes are there. So, whether you can get from the figure out from this particular diagram or not. So, this is what I like you to do this exercise. Then there is mathematical calculation, very simple mathematical calculation, and just like before what we will get the Nusselt correlation will give the most conservative value of average heat transfer coefficient, that is the lowest value. Current correlation or current relationship will be in between, and the experimentally derived relationship which has been shown lastly, that will give the maximum heat transfer coefficient. So, now it is up to the designer that what he will select. So, with this let us go to the next slide. This is the end of the problem, but at the end of the problem there is certain thing to be noted. What we find that when we have arranged the tubes in the staggered arrangement, what we get? We get a higher value of average heat transfer coefficient for the tube side condensation. So, this is one thing to be noted. So, many places in practice we will see that staggered layout of tubes are preferred compared to the inline layout of the tubes. One of the reason we can see here, particularly for condensation, and staggered layout generally in case of single phase flow, it gives a better coefficient of heat transfer in case of single phase flow also. So, many cases if there are no other reason, people will prefer to have staggered arrangement. Staggered arrangement gives a compact design. On a small design, you can, on a small volume, you can pack up more number of tubes. That is first thing. It gives higher rate of heat transfer. That is another thing, and in case of condensation, what we can find that it gives lesser inundation of the condensate film. So, with this message, so let us move to the next slide. Staggered arrangement of tubes yields higher average heat transfer coefficient compared to inline arrangement. So, this is the first thing. The effect of condensate inundation can be reduced. This is another way. So, what we can see, the average heat transfer coefficient on surface condensation is getting reduced because of inundation of the condensate film. One way of course, is to have staggered arrangement to reduce this effect to some extent, but even if we go for higher reduction, then what we can do? We have thought of horizontal layout of the tube bundle. We can go for laying out the tube bundle in a slightly inclined way. So, in that way it will help into film drainage because gravity force is there. So, it will thin down the liquid film, and at the same time the effect of or the detrimental effect of condensate inundation will be reduced. So, generally some inclination, we cannot go for very large implication, that will have other effect on the design of the condenser. So, generally within 5 degree we try to limit the inclination of the tube to get some sort of a relief from the effect of inundation. So, this problem then gradually what we have seen, how to calculate film condensation on a single tube and how to calculate the film condensation if there is a tube bank and there are tubes in a column, large number of tubes in a column. Another thing I like to say that in all these cases we have assumed the Nusselt type film condensation where there is no velocity of the vapor. This is true in many cases in surface condenser, particularly for power plant etc. We will find that the vapor velocity is really very small. But where the vapor velocity is there, it will have some effect on the film, and obviously it will reduce the it will modify it will change the heat transfer coefficient. Now, sometimes we will have a small discussion on this. Now, let us move to the next topic. With our knowledge of single tube condensation over a single tube, condensation over a tube bank, now we move to a condenser where we are where the problem is more rigorous and where the problem is more involved. So, this is again taken from the book of heat exchanger, book called Heat Exchangers Selection, Rating and Thermal Design by Sadiq Kakak and his co-authors, and the problem reads like this: a cell and tube type condenser is to be designed for a coal fired power station of 200 megawatt electricity. Steam enters the turbine at 5 megapascal and 400 degree Celsius. I is denoted as I is denoted for, or I is used as the symbol for enthalpy. So, I1 the enthalpy value has been given, which can be readily picked up from a steam table, and the condenser pressure is 10 kilopascal. So, 0.1 bar. So, steam enters the turbine and comes out at 0.1 bar. The thermodynamic efficiency of the turbine is 0.85. This is isentropic efficiency. The actual enthalpy of steam entering the condenser at 0.1 bar is calculated like this. So, isentropic efficiency is given, so that we know the actual enthalpy of the steam when it is entering the turbine. So, that we have got, and then the condenser is to be designed without subcooling. So, in the condenser only condensation takes place, and we assume that the liquid is coming out as saturated, the condensate is coming out as saturated liquid. A single tube pass is used and the cooling water velocity is assumed to be 2 meter per second. So, in the surface condenser used for steam power plant, what we do is that steam is condensed on outside the tubes, and through the tube we circulate cooling water. Coolant is water only. So, this I have told, and again I am repeating, because people should have good idea regarding at least the basic heat exchangers, very important heat exchangers for our industry. Cooling water is available at 20 degree Celsius and can exit the condenser at 30 degree Celsius. So, cooling water, there will be a change in temperature, but for steam there will not be any change in temperature, because subcooling is not considered over here. So, only thing is that the steam quality will change from inlet to the heat exchanger to the from the inlet to the heat exchanger to the outlet, and at the outlet the X value or dryness fraction will be equal to 0. Allowable total pressure drop on tube side is 35 kilopascal. The tube wall thermal conductivity is given. What is the thermal conductivity? So, first what we have to do, we have to calculate the mass flow rate of these streams. So, first let us calculate the mass flow rate of the vapor side, cell side or steam, the condensing steam. So, how do we find out? We know the total amount of work that has to be extracted from the that can be extracted from the turbine, and we know it is a 200 megawatt power plant. So, 200 megawatt will be the work done, and from there enthalpy, we know enthalpy of the steam entering the turbine, enthalpy of steam leaving the turbine we know, and from there we can get the steam flow rate, that is 215.68 kg per second. So, this is the steam flow rate we are getting. So, basically this one, the flow rate of steam. So, this is what we have got, and this is a very important, very basic information regarding the heat exchanger. So, now let us move to the next slide. Next slide, let us just have a look into the properties. Cooling water properties at mean temperature of 25 degree Celsius. You see the cooling water temperature changes At inlet it is 20 degrees Celsius, at outlet it is 30 degrees Celsius. So, the mean temperature will be 25 degrees Celsius. At this point probably we have mentioned it and we will mention number of times that in heat exchanger as there is a change in temperature, there could be change in property. So, due to this change in property, the, the heat exchanger calculation ideally becomes non-linear and which is difficult to handle. So, in many cases the non-linearity is so high that we have to handle it accurately and probably we have to go for numerical solution. There are very large number of cases, industrial example, where the non-linearity is not that high and we cannot afford going for fully numerical solution. So, what we do? We go for some sort of averaging. So, here also we have averaged the liquid temperature, coolant side temperature 25 degrees Celsius. So, we have got the specific heat, we have got the viscosity, we have got the thermal conductivity and then we have got the density of liquid water and ultimately we have got the Prandtl number of the liquid water. Similarly, saturated liquid properties of the condensed water on the cell side, we have got the latent heat of vaporization. The latent heat of vaporization we have got, sorry, we have to go back to the previous slide. So, we have got latent heat of vaporization, we have got liquid viscosity, liquid thermal conductivity, liquid density and we have got when the liquid is in the saturated condition, what could be the enthalpy of the liquid. So, all these things we have got. Outside tube diameter and inside tube diameter we have given. Now, these two things of course, one can think of calculating, but particularly the inside tube diameter one can think of calculating, but sometimes it is selected in a practical heat transfer equipment design or heat exchanger design. Many of the things are to be selected a priori when you start the design. Sometimes these selected quantities we do not change, sometimes these selected quantities we change depending upon our preliminary result. So, here we have considered the inside and outside diameter of the tube. Sometimes it happens like this, that these are the tubes which are generally manufactured for this kind of heat exchanger. So, we have got limited selection and sometimes people use or the designer use his intuition and experience for selecting certain parameter. Keeping everything floating, designing of a heat exchanger, it becomes almost impossible, if not a Herculean task. So, certain thing we have to assume or take that these things are given. So, now let us go back to the next slide. So, next slide the cooling water velocity has been selected as 2 meter per second. This is a problem statement. Now, cooling water velocity is selected depending on two considerations. If we have got very low velocity, then we will have tendency for fouling. If we have got high velocity, then we will have erosion and lesser tube life and problems of tube leakage, etc. that may be there. And again, higher velocity will give higher pressure drop generally and higher pumping power. So, based on all these considerations, we have to select the velocity. And again I have told that the designer is an experienced one, or he has got good knowledge, or he has got access to handbooks, etc., codes and standards. So, from here a velocity can be picked up. Selection of velocity is very important, because the inside heat transfer coefficient, that is also dependent on velocity. So, let us work with a velocity of 2 meter per second. Then fouling resistance for a practical heat exchanger design, one has to consider fouling, and particularly an application like this where you have to use water. Water is a very good reactant with many kind of metallic surfaces. So, that is one thing. Another thing is that there is sufficient amount of temperature difference. Heating of the tube is there on one side, cooling of the tube is there on the other side. So, there will be the tubes will be prone to fouling on both sides, inner side and outer side. So, similarly, we have to calculate or estimate pick up the fouling resistance. So, inside and outside fouling resistances we have picked up, and here also we have used TEMA. TEMA I have mentioned earlier, that is it is TEMA is a code, gives many codes and standards for heat exchanger design. It is Tubular Exchanger Manufacturers Association. So, from there we have picked up, and then from the data etcetera which have been supplied to you. So, we get what is the total amount of heat transfer and we get what is the coolant flow rate. So, these two are again very important information which we get from this calculation, preliminary calculation, simple calculation. With this, let us go back to let us proceed to the next slide. Basically, we need to determine the following now: the number of tubes, length of the tubes, number of tubes, and the adopted tube arrangement will help us to select the cell diameter. We will discuss about it later on. So, initially we want to know that how many tubes we need to have this heat transfer. Rate of heat transfer has been given to us. Tube through the tube liquid velocity we have got, liquid flow rate we have got. So, number of tubes we have to find out, and then length of the tube, that is also very important. So, length of the tube we have to find out. So, when we get the number of tubes and length of the tube, then gradually we are moving towards the entire size of the heat exchanger, the entire size of the cell and tube heat exchanger. Though these two are the most important dimensions, there are other geometrical features which also need to be specified. So, this is also one thing. We will gradually see what are the other features we need to specify for heat exchanger, for a complete design of heat exchanger. At this point, I like to mention that obviously mechanical design we are not doing. In mechanical design of heat exchangers, there are many details like what should be the cell thickness, etcetera. Why we have calculated this tube thickness, whether really this tube thickness are good from mechanical design point of view or not. But the mechanical design is not within the purview of the present course. So, we will concentrate basically to thermohydraulic design, more precisely the methods of analysis to arrive at a thermohydraulic design. So, this is what we are going to do, and we are proceeding slowly towards that. The number of tubes, once we have got the coolant flow rate. So, this equation will give us the number of tubes. Okay. So, basically the number of tube we can calculate like this. For calculating the condensing side heat transfer coefficient, an estimate of average number of tube rows on a vertical column is needed, and there again comes some sort of a calculation procedure, that now we have got total number of tubes. The total number of tubes is quite high, 13,000 tubes, around 13,000 tubes. Now, how the tubes will be arranged? So, there will be rows of tubes, there will be columns of tubes. Columns of tubes, in a column how many tubes will be there, that is very important. So, because the heat transfer coefficient due to inundation of condensate depends on how many tubes are there on a column. This we have explained in a great detail we have explained. So, here based on some consideration again we are considering that there will be 70 tubes like this. So, like this there will be 70 tubes. So, this is 70, this is first tube. So, on a particular column there will be 70 tubes. So, this we are considering, and the Coulomb heat transfer coefficient H can be estimated from in tube correlation. So, outside heat transfer coefficient we have to now determine, inside heat transfer coefficient we have to determine, and how we have to determine we will see, and you can see that we are fixing certain numbers, we are calculating certain numbers. So, ultimately these heat transfer coefficients we can calculate. Let us go back, let us go to the next slide. So, I think we have come to an end of this lecture, and next lecture we will carry from this point. Thank you.